Thank you, Dr. Achyut. Good evening and welcome to the staff Causerie. The speakers of this evening are Professor Rajalekshmi LS and Professor Anquna Ananitha. Professor Rajalekshmi is a passionate teacher and a voracious reader. She has around 5 years of teaching experience in St. Joseph's College. Her areas of research are translation, cultural studies, and folk literature. Today, she would be presenting Timepass on women and leisure. And in her presentation, she attempts to look at the dynamics of leisure in everyday lives of.
Hello, Professor Lily. Am I audible?
Yes.
Is my video on as well?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just share the screen.
Yeah, screen is visible.
Yeah. I'm just trying the slideshow. Yeah, visible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, first of all, Professor Lily, for that generous introduction. Good evening, everyone. Today for the staff causerie, I'll be speaking about Timepass on women and leisure. So this is how I'm going to go about it. First, I'm going to talk about my mother and her love for cinema, then go into my inquiries into the question of women and leisure, and then finally conclude it with looking at this one Instagram page that I discovered during the pandemic called Basanti Women at Leisure. So, what is my mother's story? So we shifted to Bangalore about 25 years back, right? And my mother worked as an accountant for almost 15 years, and it's only in the last one decade that she's been a teacher. So in the last 2-3 years, she hasn't been working because of her health conditions. Now, what happened over the period from the time when she was an accountant to becoming a teacher to now sitting at home is that she saw a gradual change in how she sort of negotiated time and space. Initially, when she was an accountant, she used to wake up at like 5:45 in the morning, work till 11:30, right? And in between all of this, she's taking care of us. She's going to office, coming back, and finishing all her household chores. And then in the last one decade, when she was a teacher, there was a little bit of a relaxation where we could see her, taking some time off all the chores and the work that she has to do in school and college and rest. In the last few years, right, that's when she had to be at home because of her health condition, is when I saw that she's now absolutely relaxing. Now, in the process of all of this is when I discovered her love for cinema. Now, this love for cinema only came to us, it was not even noticeable when she was working as an accountant. It used to come out once in a while when she's speaking about probably some experiences from her childhood, probably some experiences of watching movies, right? But over the last 3 years, what I've seen is that, the idea of an absolute film lover is what I have seen in the last 3 years. And I'm always shocked, always amused, always surprised when she is talking about, let's say, the death of Jayan or the Seema Ivy Shashi controversies, scandals that used to happen, or about the fashion statements of that period that reflected in the ornaments that they used to wear. Right. So she was a voracious reader. She was also somebody who listened to a lot of radio and also read newspaper a lot. So what I saw at that time was that, that's in the last 3 years, is that she was able to tell these stories. Now, it started off with her watching movies, right? I used to doze off by the middle of the movie, but she used to sit through. My sister and I are putting a movie at 11 o'clock. She's sitting through watching the whole movie till the end and only sleeping at 1. Right now, that's not the time that she usually slept. And this used to happen quite often, almost every Saturday and Sunday. Now, going on from there, there used to be times when she used to share the stories of her experiencing movie in theater, right? That's from childhood when there used to be film screenings to going forward and experiencing movies in theater later in her life. To a point where she used to read reviews of movies and let us know that okay, this is happening, that is this movie is releasing, so this is what I heard, right? And now she is also reading reviews and asking us questions as to why are we not watching movies, right? Or on OTT, or even to a point where we were also questioning as to things like why can't she relax? Why can't she watch a movie? When we used to sit and watch a movie or comment on it, we were told, oh, ഇത് ഓർമ്മയുണ്ട് but പഠിക്കുന്ന ഓർമ്മയില്ല. Basically saying you remember everything from the movie but don't remember anything from what you read, right? All of those now, so now we are asking this question. Oh, so you did watch movies, right? So you did experience all of this. Now the sad part of what it is that we're only getting to see it now, right? That's
space, we have obviously heard multiple authors speak about it, right? We've heard Virginia Woolf speaking about consent. We've heard from medieval stonecraft. We've also heard of Martha Freud, right? Wives of these really famous men, Karl Marx's wife, Alma, Gustav Mahler's wife, who made sure that the house was silent when he was composing music, right? So when we take into consideration all of this, right, time and space becomes a feminist issue. And when we talk about time and space again, right, this brings into it takes into the idea of domestic space, right? What happens within this domestic space? How, like from the survey I mentioned of how much time is spent on paid labor, how much time is spent on unpaid labor, right? How this time is capitalized, especially when it comes to women, right? How social class plays an important role. How the social economic dynamics play an important role. Now, when we talk about this, money actually, the finding also says that money is not really the primary constraint when it comes to women experiencing leisure. And what happens through all of this is that we understand that when it comes to leisure is fragmented as sanitary for women. Now, recently there was a HuffPost article that mentioned as to how, Christmas is supposed to be the magical time, but the effort, when you talk about Christmas, it's the holiday season, right? But the amount of effort women put into delegating work, into looking after, making sure that the magical time happens, sort of brings us to this idea of how leisure is secondary, right? Especially when it comes to women. And also the idea of how it's fragmented in the sense that women have to sort of try and find time for leisure in between work. Let's say doing household chores, listening to radio, right? Ironing the clothes, watching TV, and multiple such things. Now, so when we look at all of this, right, the deprivation aspect, looking at time and space as a feminist issue, also the survey that we came across, we sort of understand that leisure is something that reflects the structures of power that have been forged and sustained throughout, right? It is a product of the social relations that are present in the society, right? Now, we talk about how women are extremely time poor, right? Basically talking about how there is a shortage of time when it comes to thinking about how much time they indulge in self-care and all of that. And the social political framework is also reflected through this, and the individual's position in it, right? A woman who is economically well off has no time to spend outside. At the same time, a woman who's not economically well off, at the same time is working. There's an example of how some women find time in between traveling. And in between commuting is when they find the time to sort of indulge in the activities that they like, probably listening to music, watching a series that they couldn't complete in the previous day, or catching up with friends, right? Now, all of this sort of comes from the idea of the masculine idea of labor and the worthiness of rest. We still today look at all the work that we do, the labor that we do from a masculine idea. And therefore, men who do these work, right, are considered worthy of rest, and women an illegitimate occupant of this space or the time that is spent. So then there's this idea of how people who go out and work and come back need to spend the most time in rest. Now, one of the other social political framework that's coming out is also how ideal women as a dangerous figure. Now, there was an article that spoke about how prostitutes were called street walkers, right? And you also have that element coming where you're discouraging women from going out. There's violence in the outside space, right? Coming from all of this. And language also shapes the idea of how women consume these spaces, right? So most often what happens is at the end, to visibilize their effort, to visibilize their labor, women usually are directed towards being very, very industrious and all-knowing. And it's only when a woman is qualifying these things of being absolutely industrious or all-knowing that they are provided that space and the time, right, to take the leisure, take the time off, to take a break and all of that. Now, coming to this other survey that I looked up, this is University of Barcelona's 2019 survey, right? Now, it sort of deviates from the idea that I've been mentioning in the beginning. Now, University of Barcelona conducted this on people from Spain and looked into the idea of satisfaction when it comes to leisure. Yes, men take more time when it comes to leisure, right? They have the space and the time, everything given to them. But the idea of satisfaction, right? And if you are really happy when it comes to leisure, was looked into in this article, in this particular survey. So the aspect they're looking at is satisfaction, and this findings sort of supports this idea and says that women are better decision makers when it comes to what kind of leisure do they want, right? And how do they want to spend that leisure? Do they want to sort of take rest, right? Or do they want to listen to music? Do they want to go out and have fun? Do they want to watch movies, right? But when it comes to men, because they have so much time and space, right? They somewhere are not able to make the decision. Somewhere you can say that they're stalled for choices, right? And what happened, what came out through the survey is also how women sort of look at it from a positive time perspective, right? It spoke about how they are not indulging in looking at how the pastimes were, or how they are going to look into the fatalities of it or the banal ideas of it, but instead indulging in the idea of leisure, not getting distracted, and taking away complete satisfaction from all of this. Right, and that sort of connects to the psychological idea of how it's positive, the positive time perspective. We're looking at time from the perspective of present and being in the moment and indulging in these leisurely activities rather than thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow, or or trying to sort of compare your present time to the past time or any of the other things, right? So that's why from positive time perspective is where I'll be connecting to the Instagram page that I looked into, which is Women at Leisure, right? I'll be showing some of the clips, some of the photographs from this page. Now, here, the Barcelona survey sort of makes sense, right? Because this particular Instagram page sort of captures that in-the-moment experience, right? Where women are absolutely indulging in what they are doing, and not trying to negotiate, not trying to bring in any other aspects of thinking about the social or economic framework, or trying to think about what might happen in the future, what's happening in the past, thinking about this time going away or any of that, right? And trying to derive absolute satisfaction from the time they are spending in this leisurely activity. So this is started by Surabhi Yadav, right? It's called Basanti Women at Leisure, and Surabhi speaks about her mother in an article that she wrote, where she spoke about her mother who passed away, and it's only later when through her aunts and friends of her mother that she got to know how mother was a goofy person who loved doing what she loved whatever she was doing, cracking jokes, having fun, right? But Surabhi never got to see that in her mother. Whenever she saw her within the house, she was doing work, right? She never saw this side of the goofiness, the fun that she had, that she heard from people who knew her mother previously, right? Before marriage, before she had children, or anything for that matter. So Surabhi, that's why Surabhi got this idea of starting this page, and she started this in 2019, 10 September 2019. That's when the first post was. Now, when you look at it, when you look at the look at the multiple things that is happening in this page, you realize that this page is breaking down the idea of an ideal woman. There's no ideal woman. There's also no ideal leisure activity. Now, when you're talking about leisure, we're constantly thinking about getting away from your house, right? Going out, taking a break, right? Or you have a more fancy ideas that are propagated through social media and other sources, right? But here, there is no ideal women and there is no ideal leisure time either. Those ideas are broken down completely, and what we see is women just being themselves in those times that they get. Now, it also covers the heterogeneity of women's leisure. So she divides this page into three categories. One is women at leisure, one women at work, and women waiting. So women at leisure, this is an example. All the photographs that I put are examples of women at leisure. There are also women at work, and she also does the thing where she puts it in bracket, women at leisure, women at work, right? Where she speaks about the leisure time that they take out of work, or the work that they do during the leisure time, and multiple things. She also speaks about women waiting. And that's one other very, very powerful aspect of this page, where she's talking about just women sitting there, waiting and taking that time, right? Not probably they're thinking of something, but then you see that there is a certain calmness to that waiting as well, and she captures that in these photographs. Now, what else comes through this page? There's an ordinariness of desire. Right? Like I told you, there's no extravagant idea of what a vacation should be. There's no extravagant idea of how a person should spend the holiday, right? There's no such thing as anything that sort of shows us the ideal aspect. Instead, there is an ordinariness. There's an everydayness of the leisure time. Similarly, all of this is personal and unexoticized, right? It comes from the space that the women occupy, whether it's domestic or outside, and it's absolutely, like I mentioned, satisfactory, right? Now, before I end the presentation, I'd like to show some of my favorite posts from the page. So my absolute favorite one is the one that I could connect to, and that's to do with this particular post where your Adi Sharma is talking about her mother who sat and watched around 20 films in 1 month during the lockdown. And I could connect immediately because I know what I saw in my mother as well, right? And here, what I also saw is that she mother is reviewing these and not reviewing it like we have the reviews in newspapers or other places. She's speaking about it from very, very personal perspective. She's connecting the characters to her exes. She's connecting the characters to her husband, right? And that's the review that she's doing. And this is her mother watching movies. Now, how I discovered this page is through this one video. Women's enjoying their time near a beach. So I don't know if the audio, if you can hear the audio, but yes, this is the one where a group of friends were visiting Mumbai, right? And they were standing there and looking towards the shore, toward the sea and talking. So this sort of somewhere I was able to connect to it because I have seen a lot of women occupying these spaces here in Bangalore as well. When you see a bunch of women who are working in garments coming together, right? Absolutely having the time of their day. Probably the transit, like I told you, the travel time, right? They are listening, they're talking, they are indulging in music. So that sort of, I was able to connect to that. This is one where Kamala Bashan's, I think this is the grandchild, grandson doing a massage. So this is another one of my favorites, talking about grandparent-grandchildren relationship. There's another one. There's two more, actually. Yes, this one. The description of it was what caught my attention. Henna is beautiful. It is cold and leaves color. More beautiful in the process of applying henna, and even more than that is what women lays with her hands, legs adorned with designs of it. The patriarch of the house shows up with yet another task as usual. The mischievous nod, layered with guilt in the eyes of these women when they raise their caked up hands to say, sorry, I'm busy, without saying it, is the most layered form of autonomy, however short-lived. I have seen women Professor Rajalekshmi. Rajalekshmi. You are not audible to us. I'm sorry, my internet. Yeah. Perhaps you can switch off the camera. Yeah, perhaps you can switch off the camera. Yes, trying to do that. Okay, it's just asking me to rejoin. But anyway, I think I'll just conclude. There was, like I told you, there were two more. One was about this Dr. Kanika Kannan, who crocheted Kamala Sohoni, who she's the first woman to get PhD in science in India in the year 1939, and she crocheted this her portrait in and she created like a quilt out of it. And
if possible, try screen sharing.
So it's asking you to rejoin.
Okay, then fine, continue.
Yeah. There's one last one, which is about a mother and her daughter. Okay, in the mother and their daughter in their middle age. The mother here is an Alzheimer patient, and them listening to a song. Right, this is because the mother is not able to sort of remember anything from she's really able to remember everything from her childhood, right? And what the mother does is to make her listen to the lyrics of songs from the 60s, right? And they have a small time on their bed. So yes, so if you look at the examples that I just gave you, these sort of captures the ordinariness. It captures the banal idea of leisure, right? Not talking about the exotic, fancy ones, and that's why that's a perspective I'd like to take about leisure, right? And that's what I presented. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you for that very interesting presentation. Starting from your personal experience or your personal observation of your mother, her space, and going through women, perhaps all over the world. Okay, you have touched upon, and again you entered with mothers or women. So there was a cyclic way of presenting it. Thanks a lot. If anybody has any questions to Professor Rajalekshmi, you're welcome to post it in the chat box, or if you wish, you can unmute yourself and ask her the question. Yeah, I see Professor Mika Thambi.
Thank you, Rajalekshmi. Wonderful presentation. Excellent. I'm so happy to listen to this. So one thing I would like to know your opinion or view on the idea of leisure and menstruation, how that specific time in a way which is also used as a taboo for women to do anything but have this kind of an explanation is always given that you can take a rest and idea of free time and take rest. But at the same time, it's highly patriarchal, extremely, that in their narrative. I would like to know how you respond to that.
Yes, so I'll only be able to give you examples from the house here. Also, what I've seen across, observed in women, I know. Now, for me, the cramps that I have were not that bad. But then I have had my mother, my sister, my friends who had absolutely terrible time, right, during menstruation. Now, the idea of leisure there again, right, is sadly demarcated by these socioeconomic conditions, right? There are women, I know for a fact, there are a lot of friends who are able to take a day off, right, and rest. At the same time, I have never seen my mother take rest because of this, right? Also, some other friends and aunts and aunts, you know, who are again, right? It all depends upon the condition of their house. It's never about, okay, I really want to relax today and let me, right? It's only when you have a mother and then my friends are able to, right? Now, with all of them working, I really don't see anybody taking that day off, right? Unless it is absolutely difficult for them. So this again connects to the idea of how they negotiate these things by taking into consideration not them, their day of break, right? The day where they want to just rest, but instead everything else that is happening around them. So yes, that's my observation.
Thank you so much. I was also mentioning this idea where, in a way, it is forced upon women also. That idea of rest during this period, no, as part of not touching it. The idea of untouchable time they are actually going through. I mean, like, you can't touch anything. Just you are locked up in a room. In terms of, like, in the name of taking rest and taking break time. If I don't know if you have seen the movie Great Indian Kitchen, you see that she's actually reading book, but she's not at all enjoying the process of reading during that period when she was trying to read. Yeah. Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Professor Mika, but the other thing there is, again, in my house and also my the people I know, right here, the thing of untouchability is not practiced that much. We can enter the kitchen, we can walk around, except going to the religious places, right? So then there, yes, there's a big question, right, as to what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Mika. We have Professor Jyotsna requesting you to post those images later here. Okay, yeah.
Done. We'll send it to you, ma'am.
Yeah, Amanda says it was such a fascinating presentation, great illumination of how the personal is political. Thank you, Professor Raji. Meanwhile, we have Muthu sir coming with a question. We have other questions as well in the chat box. Yes, Muthu sir.
Okay. Rajalekshmi, thank you. It's a good presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
But I just want to ask one thing that, of course, you will talk about women and leisure. This idea of leisure, when you connect it with children, it becomes very interesting because, how will you, conceptualize leisure when it comes to children, especially little children, because children are. Can you say children are leisure, or can you say children are not in their leisure? What kind of how will you place children in the in the concept of leisure, especially children who are not in schools? For example, imagine children's like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year kid. How will you conceptualize or how will you put a child in the idea of leisure? Is the child in the leisure, or is he or she? How will you do that? How will you connect children and leisure?
Right. So recently I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's not really somebody who believes in this traditional idea of education and all of that. He's speaking about how when it comes to children, right, our educational system sort of imposes even play, the idea of what kind of play there should be, right, and the leisure there of them just doing whatever they want is still again restricted. Actually, I wouldn't say restricted, but when it comes to especially urban population, this idea of leisure is somewhere negotiated through this play, right? Where even the play needs to be something that they have to indulge in and take education out of, right? And these friends of mine who are in NGO, who work with different NGOs, are speaking about this one campus in Dharmapuri where children are just left to do what they want, right? And they are asked to climb trees. They are asked, I mean, not even asked. They just let free and they do whatever they want. And when the parents came complaining, saying that you're not teaching the children anything, they just let to play and they're breaking their legs and coming back home. The organization had a very they basically said that this is how they need to learn, right, and not by again imposing the idea of what a play should be. This again, if you look at the urban space and the kind of equipments we have in playgrounds for children, right? Again, not the large playgrounds that we have, but these play areas being provided, they're again not. The idea of play there is again limited to some things that shouldn't be dangerous, right? Things that sort of make sure that children are not physically hurting themselves, right? And again, they are not going and exploring or anything, right? They are told how to play. They're told to get in from the slide and get down through another slide, right? And just again the limited space and all of that. So I feel when it comes to children, right, what I have observed that here again, when there is an idea of what, the idleness is not something that is appreciated. Play is appreciated, but again, something that is only directed towards education, something that is only directed towards taking out something out of the play, and not really idleness. You sit, you do, you draw on the walls, you figure out what you want, nothing like that. Yeah, so I feel again there is a socio-political angle to that as well.
Yes, thank you. But the thing is, no, I just, when I think loud, I just think whether anybody can have a leisure, because when you live in a society, when you live, I know if you have two people in a place, definitely we have this idea of one and the other, having, sharing a space, then automatically you will have something. We cannot be, I don't know whether we can be our own doing something. That itself is, you said no, idleness is not, updated. So it's very difficult to say, whether we can have a leisure at all. That itself is a very interesting, question we should think, because only if there is nobody else in the world, only if there is a solitary person, I guess he or she can be leisure, because the moment you have another person, then I think there is a kind of, because you get the power structure building when you have another person itself. That itself is a, yeah. Thank you, Rajalekshmi. Thank you very much. Wonderful hearing you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Muthukumar. We have Dr. Mini Mark asking you, does your mother miss her working days outside of the home?
She doesn't want to work, but only because there's some purpose that she could again be the woman who is providing the financial support. But otherwise, I think she's really enjoying her time here at home. Okay, she's getting the rest of the 25 years that she was working.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Achyut, a really insightful presentation, Rajalekshmi. How far do you think the advent of new media has enabled everyday activities of leisure among middle-class women? How empowering or limiting is it? For instance, has social media made women to spend their leisure time alone in the house rather than in the company of peers?
Social media, like I told you, somewhere it is also telling us that this is the ideal way of spending time, right? If you see a lot of posts where women are going out and spending, we somewhere, if you aren't somebody who can relate to that, then you are disappointed seeing that. At the same time, a page like this is sort of breaking those ideas and breaking those stereotypes of what leisure should be, right? And telling you that everything and anything that you do in those spaces, right, however you spend it is leisure for you. Like I told you, it's either doing something or nothing at all, right? So with social media, I feel that, from my mother's example again, she was able to connect to her old friends, right? And speaking to them once in a while became the time that she took out. So it's both. I've seen that women have sort of relaxed, and the social media sort of given that space and time for them, right? They discuss movies, they call each other and check whether they are fine, right? They are also trying, they call and they are talking about the time that they spent once upon a time, right? All of that. At the same time, I feel we can't ignore the fact that there is an idea of leisure, vacation, right, and how it should be spent is also somewhere being put down on people, and that has led to a lot of dissatisfaction in the society too.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Amanda. Could you comment on how the pandemic and lockdown-based restrictions have impacted women's leisure?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
How the pandemic and lockdown-based restrictions have impacted women's leisure. Did you get me?
Yes, yes. There was this one article that I read that spoke about how work from home has changed the idea. So it broke down the idea of how work from home, there is this idea of domestic work and the work that you're doing. In fact, when I was showing you the page, there's this one woman who's an IT professional holding a child and working, right? So somewhere your work from home has broadened, sorry, not broadened, but created a lot more categorization, I feel. Some people who, let's say, women who used to get the space of the house for themselves, used to, are now, restricted because everyone's at home. At the same time, right, a lot of women who were finding some economic source out of, working from home, not the work the kind of white collar job, but exactly. But let's say some people who are making pickles, some people who are making papad and all of that, right? Crocheting and knitting and all of that, and that's giving them sort of an economical source. Somewhere in the beginning of the pandemic, that again was had a shaky ground because of all the things that were happening. Now, work from home, right, has created a whole new division, right? Now, somewhere the line that you draw between your personal space and the professional space has been blurred, right? We can see that across a lot of different jobs, right? And what is happening through that, I feel, is somewhere the leisure time again, right, becomes a big question mark. How do you now define leisure time, right? How do you now take your time, take your break, right, and spend all of that? I feel somewhere some people are able to connect the same. For me, at least from my experience, what I see is leisure time is taken away, is what I feel from doing this work from home. You think you have a lot of personal time and space, but it's actually not there.
Thank you. You have some other comments which are not questions as such. We have another question from Professor Vijayata Kumar. She's wondering how the Kannada word for leisure plays into this context.
I actually saw that question. While I was actually answering Muthukumar's question, I was thinking about Atta. How is Atta sort of playing in this context? Ma'am, I don't know. I think I should really figure it out because Kali, Atta, and all of that, right? Both region, the terms. I don't know how it's sort of. You're using Atta for play, also you're using Atta for leisure. I don't know, ma'am. I'm still trying to. Time pass. Oh, sorry. I was thinking time pass. Yes, time pass. That's exactly what came to my mind when I was putting down this title. Initially, it was Amma and her love for cinema, but then I realized I'm talking about so many other things. So time pass, I feel it captures the essence of the leisure, right? That idea that I spoke about, you either doing nothing or you're doing something that's absolutely your own. That was captured completely by that time pass word. And time pass ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀನಿ. Somewhere it gives you that freedom also, because somewhere it captures that essence also, I feel.
Oh, that reminds me of this in the north when they eat groundnuts. They call in the train when they sit and eat groundnuts, they call it time pass. Time pass khayega, time pass. Okay.
But time pass kar rahi hu.
Okay. Yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
To one of the pictures that you had posted in the very beginning from the Insta, I guess. It looked like women dancing during Garba. In round.
There was not Garba. There was a wedding function where women got together and danced.
Okay, yeah. Similar occasions. So my question is occasions like a religious festival or.
Sorry. That was. There was a wedding function where women got together.
Fine. Yeah. So occasions like.
There's a lag.
Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. My question is about the religious festivals and occasions like wedding or other social gatherings. That is where women come together and have this sort of
dance or some traditional performance, which we see as relaxation or leisure. We call it as leisure. So you had also initially spoken about Christmas being the magical time, how women struggle to make it a magical time. So isn't there an irony or a dichotomy between this same role of religion or the festivities or the traditional roles as such? How do you look at it?
This again, I forgot to mention, but women here, the Jain community women, and also another friend of mine mentioned about Muslim Bohara communities, right, where they have kitty parties, right, and they get together and they meet once in a while, right. There are bhajans, there are all the recitals happening. At the same time, they also plan for pilgrims that they go for. Now, one of the articles I was reading was speaking about, the idea here is not exactly to go get enlightened, but just to get out of the house, right? Come together and be in a group and go. Now, somewhere here, it also sort of shows as to how, especially with the political climate at this time, right? These are becoming spaces where here the very, very conservative ideas are propagated. But at the same time, right? If you think about just the leisure idea there, we understand that yes, like you said, there is that irony, right? Where you're not really thinking about being absolutely religious. You're not spending time in that enlightenment movement, spiritual or anything. But there's so many other things, right? You meeting and talking and having lunch and going out and everything else that's coming into the picture.
Okay, thank you. We have so many comments, like essay type comments are there by Professor Achud and so on. We can read it later.
I will read it.
Yeah. Perhaps we can move on to, if no other comments related to Rajalekshmi's presentation, we can move on to the next speaker of the day. Yeah, I see Professor Muthukumar's hand. Yes, Professor Muthukumar, please.
One quick remark. Rajalekshmi, it was a very good presentation. Only one comment I want to give. Just if you can, you just look at the idea of leisure, how it evolved over the history, because the idea of leisure itself started during the Industrial Revolution in Europe, because that is when the this working time came into existence, and the idea of leisure. And people say that this idea of leisure itself is there to make us relax, and then take us back into the workforce. That kind of an interpretation. So it's so. If you can just look at how the leisure as an idea evolved in history from maybe 17th or 18th century to the present, that will become a good context in which you can place your personal story. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, sure. This is something again. Actually, I thought bringing the history part would be too much. So there's one protest that during the.
Can everyone hear me and see you?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Yeah, Professor Anquna Ananitha, Assistant Professor in the Department of English at St. Joseph's College, is also a writer. She has been a Josephite from her +2 onwards. In her spare time, she bakes and unearths old typewriters and family histories. She believes that people are walking, talking, living, and breathing stories, and she wishes to collect all of them while she can. Today, her presentation, Bhatyam's Beef, seeks to explore the lives and worlds of women in Paranjit's Sarpata Parambarai. They are individuals who, at the end of the day, claim spaces in ways that is unique and at the same time surprising. Professor Anquna attempts to look at how these women do just that and explore what can therefore fall under the realm of Dalit aesthetics. Over to you, Professor Anquna.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Lilikuti, for that lovely introduction. So, to begin with, Sarpata Parambarai is a film about an underdog named Kabila who then rises above and wins wins at the end of the day and brings a lot of pride to his Parambare. Today, I thought that we need to talk about the women in that story and in that film, because these women do various things that are immensely fascinating, right? When I watch the film, I've watched the film countless number of times now. I'm not sure how many times, I've lost track. The only thing I know is that every time I watch the film, it's a film that teaches me new things every single time I watch it, which is why I thought I'd bring this to you guys today, because I want to locate the Dalit aesthetic in the women of this film. I don't want to locate the women in the Dalit aesthetic, but I want to locate Dalit aesthetic in the women. Alright? So these women in the film are the kind of women I've sort of encountered at some point in my life, right? The two women I'm going to be talking about today are Bakyam and Mariamma. Bakyam is Kabila's mother, and Mariamma is Kabila's wife. Okay? So Bakyam, the mother, is a woman who sort of comes onto the screen with a rage that does not seem to diminish. In every single scene that you see her walk in, it's like she has a trail blazing behind her. Right? There's this moment where you watch her on screen and your automatic response is to sort of start giggling, because she's yelling and she's beating her son up because her son is doing things that she doesn't want him to do. Right? Now, in moments behind that laughter, I began to question why she had this never-ending rage that sort of built up in her every single moment she came on screen. Right? So this is the first aesthetic that I wanted to sort of look at, which is the rage of the Dalit woman. Right? So in an interview, Bama says that ketta vaartegal, or bad words, are essentially a weapon that women use uh, who are essentially powerless and have no authority. Right? Every time you see Bakyam uh, on screen, you will see that she could care less about the men um, around her. Right? She would walk in and make sure that her son never did the things that her husband did. Right? There's a beautiful scene in the very beginning of the film where Kevin and Kabila are talking to Kabila's friends, and there's this moment where Kevin is laughing about the fact that um, this one day Kabila, in his teenage years, happened to bunk school and go watch a boxing match, right? And there's this moment that it's a very public space, right? I want you to remember that, right? This public space is a space that only men access, right? There are only men in the audience watching a boxing match in the ring. But here is Bakyam, who walks into that scene, drags Kabila out by the ear, and makes them stop the match, right? So again, what I began to question is why was she so angry, right? What could be that possible reason for her rage, right? So this rage can sort of follow various trajectories. So one of the trajectories is the fact that it could stem from a sense of regret. Okay, so I'll show you guys images because I can't show you guys clips of these as much as I'd love for you guys to watch these clips along with me. I can't show you guys clips, but I will show you images from the film that will sort of make you guys connect to what I'm sort of saying. Right? So, like I said, there is this rage that stems from regret, right? A regret that sort of comes from this fact that she couldn't save her husband from the men who attacked him, right? So I want you guys to sort of hold on to this image and use that as a bridge to talk about my favorite woman character in this film, Mariamma. I think that her name just sort of speaks for itself. She is a woman like the Mariamman, like personified. Her rage and her fury is something that is immensely fascinating to look at, right? So there's this beautiful moment in the film where Bakyam and Mariamma are interacting with each other. Okay, so this interaction is almost as if Bakyam sees herself in Mariamma, right? And she's sort of advising her to do the things that she couldn't do, right? I want you guys to hold on to that while I sort of project my screen so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about, right? So Paranjit does this very nice thing of playing with images in a way that it repeats itself, right? You will see him talk about Bhagyam and show the very same image with Mariamma as well, right? So there is an interaction with both Kabila's past and Kabila's present slash future that he's trying to sort of establish through these two women, right? So just give me 1 second while I project my screen. Please let me know if you guys can see it. All right. So, like I said, these are stills from the movie. I apologize for the terrible quality, but this is the best I can do in terms of taking screenshots. So this is an image that is going to repeat itself. I'll tell you the context, right? So at this point in time, Kabila had watched the match between Maran and Bengal, right? So this is a moment of rage where she comes and she throws one sombul. Sombul is essentially a pot, right, or a vessel at Kabila and yells at him, right? You will see this very same moment repeating itself here, where there's a lamb and there is Mariamma waiting for Kabila to come back from practice, right? So you see that these two women are essentially mirroring each other, right? There's also a very specific moment in, so this moment is one where Kabila is being asked to come to meet Rangan, okay, at one point, which is when, um, Bakyam will say things like, "Why are you taking him there?" Right? And she'll be very concerned. But there's this beautiful moment that happens in this scene where things have happened, the story and the plotline sort of goes along, and it's this point where Kabila has sort of just recovered from the first match that he had with Wembuli, and you will see that uh, Mariamma is saying, "I am not as innocent as Bakyam to fall for the tricks that you keep doing. I am not going to allow you to go where you want to go." Right? So it's as if Mariamma is learning from Bakyam's mistakes. Right? There's this moment of like this beautiful mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship that you see. It's a very nice interaction that I noticed. Right? So I spoke about this rage that comes from regret. Right? So this is the moment that I was talking about. So this moment is the moment that a group of men are attacking Kabila's father, because Kabila's father went into the goon side of, um, you know, drug dealing and drug smuggling at one point, right? So when he became a Dada, people sort of wanted to attack him and therefore kill him, right? So at this point, she tries to protect him, but he pushes her away and she watches her husband die, right? He's killed at this point, but there's another repeating. Oh, yes. No, hold on 1 second. Oh, okay. I apologize about the image not being here, but there's another very similar image where Mariamma is, attacking the men who come to beat up Kabila when Kabila is intoxicated. Right? So again, you see that Mariamma is doing the things that Bakyam couldn't essentially do when she was there. Right? So the reason why I'm talking about these two women is that these women end up claiming a public space in a way that is not something that most women do. right? Most women would hesitate to walk into a room full of men. But here we are watching Bhagyam drag her son out by the ear. Here we are watching Mariamma defend her husband, carrying a baby in her hand. At one point, she hands the baby over to a lady, but you see that she's still fighting for her husband, right? It's not just the public that Mariamma claims this beautiful space, but there's a song called Vambala Tumbala, right? That it's one of the only two songs in the film. You will see that there's a moment where Kabila is dancing in the crowd. He's dancing on the streets, and they're celebrating his first victory, right? But then the story sort of progresses, and he gets married, and you'll see that he encounters his wife, his new bride, right, in the bedroom, who sort of unleashes her true Tamil ponnu in her by dancing to the beats of the parade. Okay, so this is a very, very beautiful moment that I want to I want you guys to sort of hold on to, right? This is the image that I want to end with, right? This image is the image that I want to associate to this idea of or sort of this image sort of captures this idea of the free spirit that the Dalit woman possesses, which is what I'd like to call another aesthetic, right? So this free spirit knows exactly what she wants, and she knows exactly what she needs to do to get whatever she wants, right? There are moments in the film where she literally asks people to zip it, sit down, and I will do what I want to do. Right? There are moments where, Kabila is called by Rangan to go to the boxing, right? But then she says, "I'm hungry, feed me, and then you," right? So there are moments which are very beautiful that she sort of knows exactly what she wants, right? So I want to end by talking about this Dalit aesthetic, right? So the Dalit aesthetic for the woman goes much, much, much more beyond than just talking about her beauty or talking about the violence and the sorrow that's attached to the woman's body, right? I want to talk about how there is aesthetic in her rage. There is this aesthetic when she feels desire, and there is this aesthetic when she feels experience and experiences freedom and also experiences victory in some way or another. Right? Uh, there's this moment where both Rangan and Mariamma beat the ring when Kabila knocks Venguli out in the climax. Right? Uh, you will see that that is a victory for Rangan on the lines of man's honor and man's space of claiming that idea of honor because he's bringing pride to the Paramara. But it's a victory for Mariamma because she's watched Kabila as a player go from someone who won the game initially, right, because of his instinct and because of his natural skills, to then losing it and to then sort of finding it again, right? So it's when Rangan speaks about Muhammad Ali's famous quote of "float like a butterfly, sting like a bee," uh, is how I know that it doesn't just apply to the boxers in the ring. It also applies to the aesthetic of a Dalit woman, right? To be delicate like a butterfly and to also knock people out and to deliver knockout punches as and when is needed. Right? So I want to end with just this, the concept of um, locating the Dalit aesthetic in the women and not just locating the woman in the Dalit aesthetic. Right? It's this thing of discovering things about Dalit women that are beyond what is already written about in terms of convention, in terms of negativity, in terms of violence. There are also women who feel, there are also women who love. Okay? And this is exactly what I want to end with. So thank you all. That's it.
Thank you, Professor Anquna, for this amazing presentation, focusing on the energy level of women and the free, spontaneous nature of Dalit women in representing themselves in characters or in characters in movie
Okay, wonderful presentation. Yeah, I would like to invite questions or comments from the audience.
Oh, there's a thought that I forgot. Can I just sort of explain? All right. Yeah. So the reason why my background is blue and there's an odd bird in the background is because this is sort of in connection to one of the colloquium sessions that we had with Sukirta Rani in it. And she talks about how a Dalit is supposed to be as free as a bird in the sky and is supposed to be limitless. So I thought that as people of the sky, I just wanted to represent the Dalits here as a bird in the sky, which is why this is my background. And I just want to say that's it.
Okay, beautiful. Excellent. Yeah, perhaps the discussions that Professor Achud and Professor Vijayda all had initiated in the last speakers session, we can continue because it resonates with your presentation more than Rajalekshmi's presentation. We have a question from Ms. Vijayda Kumar. Which two women from Sarpata would you like to see in the ring in round one?
In round one, I'd like to see Mariamma and Lakshmi in round one. I don't know why. I just want to see
one. You have to select one.
Which two women? No.
Oh, sorry. So, which two women? Sorry. Which two women? Yeah. Correct. Yeah. You have inspired us to watch it again. Okay. So Drishti ma'am is about to run to watch it. Okay. Yeah. We have Professor Natika. One of the things I've read Mariamma is interesting in the context here. Mariamma is originally a deity of the rains. Mari is an old Tamil word for rain. How a beneficial deity becomes a fierce deity is interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any further comments from anyone? Yeah, Professor Muthukumar, yes.
Okay. Anquna, good presentation. Thank you very much for the wonderful exposition. Thanks a lot. Okay. See, first you started your presentation with the idea that I want to locate Dalit aesthetics in women and not women in Dalit aesthetics, and then you finished the presentation with the same statement. So, can you just tell us what do you mean by that statement? That is one thing. And you titled your presentation as Vacuum's Beef. So, we are just wondering what is that, why, you didn't mention anything about Vacuum's Beef. So yeah, first two initial things, then we can see later. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so thank you for the questions. So the reason why I didn't say locating the women in the Dalit aesthetic is because when you say that, there are already defined aspects that would be Dalit aesthetics, right? However, these women define their own aesthetic, which is why I said locating the Dalit aesthetic in these women and not the other way around, because they form their own definitions of what the Dalit aesthetic is. So the second question, Bakir's Beef, is actually credits to Arul sir for the title, because when I asked him what I'm supposed to call this, he initially said, "Where's the beef curry Bakir?" which is essentially Kevin's dialogue to Bakir in the film. We can say Bakir's beef is essentially, her dish, her aesthetic, right? Her beef curry is her way of talking about beef curry. So maybe Bakir's beef is Bakir's aesthetic, right? So you could look at it like that.
Yeah, thank you, Anquna. And see, you talked about Dalit aesthetic, equating it to the free spiritedness, and especially in the context of the image that with that image only the song ends. It's, the free spiritedness. But I just want to know, this idea of free, spiritedness is always, advocated and talked about by women of different class and caste, and you have the representation of women, you know, uh, free spirited women in other also in other castes and groups and classes also. So why can you, if you say this as aesthetics pertaining to the Dalit women, so how do you are you are you not narrowing down it to the one particular group?
So you can read free spiritedness in whichever way you please, right? The way I chose to read it is in terms of how Sukita Rani talks about Dalit people, right? So there's this beautiful image that she talks about in terms of how there are limits on land, in terms of borders, in terms of lines that physically separate people and that physically tell you that this is where you belong, right? My idea of free spiritedness comes from her idea of what a free spirit would look like, right? She talks about Dalit people being people of the sky, right? And this is also a very strong image that Ambedkar also talks about, right? He talks about the limitlessness that the sky holds and how people of the sky have no limit, right? Which is why there's this bird that's sort of hanging in the picture in my background, sort of show you that these are the kind of free spirits that Dalit women are, even though they might seem like they come from an oppressed space, right? They know how to claim that space in a way that it makes them free, right? This is exactly what Bhagyam and Mariamma do. Every time they come on screen, people tell them that this is where you belong, right? There's a moment where Bidi Rayappa, Kabila, and Mariamma are on a boat, and she's sort of trying to get cozy with him, and Bidi Rayappa gets really irritated, right? He's like, get out of here. Like, why are you sitting here? And she says, this is my place. I'm going to sit here. What are you going to do about it? Right? So you see that she knows exactly what she wants, right? And she's a spirit who knows her limits of freedom, which is essentially no limits to her freedom, right? So that's why I associated this free spirit to the Dalit woman, right? Dalit women access this idea of freedom very, very differently. I agree, right? But this is how I read it. So, that.
Thank you. But I can also say, you said the last statement that Dalit women access the freedom very differently. So, can you say how different, what is the difference? Because, I'm very curious to know that.
Okay. So it's as simple as, okay, I'll explain it in terms of, I'm not sure if you can call Lakshmi, who is Rangan's daughter-in-law, Dalit. I'm not sure if she is, but I can try to draw a parallel between Lakshmi and Mariamma. Okay, so you'll see how Lakshmi is somebody who puts her foot down and sort of tells Rangan about, sort of calls him out on the fact that he's choosing someone outside of his kin for a match, right? But that's a space that Lakshmi accesses in a way that is very different from how Mariamma would access that space, right? Mariamma is a person who will walk in front of you with a stick to beat you if you are trying to attack her, right? I don't think Lakshmi would do that. I'm not sure if she would, right? I say that the Dalit woman accesses these spaces differently is because when you are Dalit, right, people know exactly who you are before you know who you are, right? And there are limits to you being a certain way, you talking a certain way, you bringing food, you bringing a certain kind of food to certain spaces, right? Um, this idea of freedom or this idea of freedom of a Dalit, right, is it is different from how a Savarna would look at freedom, right? They have access to spaces that we don't. They have a certain way of looking at things with a certain kind of uh, I wouldn't want to sound very rude when I say this, but looking at it through rose-tinted glasses, that we can't look at it through that, right? We've experienced things that are very different from them. Our experiences, our lived experiences, are very different from that of people who belong to what is called the Savarna, right? The Dalit experience is one that is very different. I'm not sure if I can explain it without feeling too much, but it's just a thing of knowing that there are other people who tell you who you are. Even though you may not know that you are Dalit, they will tell you exactly why you are Dalit, right? Maybe it's because of the way you speak, right? Maybe it's because of the meat that you bring into a classroom, right? Um, these are things that sort of tell you exactly who you are, which is why when Dalit people access a certain space, it's very, very different from when a person who is not Dalit accesses that space, because they are never told that you eat dead people meat, right? Or you sound very different, which is why we're not going to be friends with you, right? So experiences of Dalits and non-Dalits are very different, which is why the way they look at freedom and the way that they access this idea of the free spirit is very, very different. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, thank you, wonderful, thank you, listening to you, thank you, thank you, Bobby. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one question. In the movie, does this free-spiritedness or how far is this free-spiritedness affect Bhagyam's decision? Initially, she was trying to dissuade her son, but towards the end, she consents that he goes and practice and win the show. Yeah. So how far that free-spiritedness is limited or influenced by her decisions, or how her decisions influence that?
All right. So I located the free spiritedness to Mariamma actually, not to Bhagyam, because I think that Bhagyam is a person who wishes that she were free, right? There's always so the emotions that she sort of carries through in the entire film sort of stem from it sort of goes from rage to regret to sort of remorse, and then to sort of she sort of make space with the fact that okay, her son is like this, and there's this moment in the film where Kabila cries to her, right? He hugs her leg and he cries and he says, "I want to crawl back into your womb," right? Until that point, she doesn't talk to Kabila because he slaps her and he gets out of the house, right? So it's in that moment where you'll see that her motherly instinct sort of kicks in, right? And it's no more a sense of rage that she feels, but almost as if she's like, she even says this. She says, I stopped you from going into boxing because I thought you'd become like your father. You became like your father. So to get out of that, you need boxing, right? So she says these moments. She says it in this moment, which is why you'll sort of see her. It's not free-spiritedness that you would see in Bhakyam. You would almost see that she longs to be free. She longs to sort of access that kind of freedom that, she wishes she could have. But it's this beautiful thing that she does too, right? There will be moments where people will be celebrating, there's a moment in Bumbula Pumbula where people are putting a garland on to Kapila, and she'll take a broom and she'll come vacuum and say, "You just won one match. What is this big thing? Go quiet." Right? So there are different ways that these women access these spaces. Right? So I don't think that you would sort of locate free spiritedness in Vacuum, but you would locate her longing for a free spirit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have all our colleagues congratulating you, thanking you. Okay.
Thank you.
If no other question from anyone else, perhaps we can wind up. Thank you once again for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And for making this evening rather memorable one. Both of you, both Professor Rajalekshmi and Professor Anquna Ananitha. Thank you, one and all. I'm sorry. Professor Arulmani. The point about women making selves by learning from each other and averting the repetition of history, thus is well taken. Does Ranjit give this self-making enough air?
I don't think so. I actually want more of, like, both Vacuum and I feel like the women of Sarpeta deserve a film of their own. Like, they need to have, like, a film that talks about the history of the women in this parampara, right? Because at the end of the day, where do these men in the parampara come from? The women are responsible for bringing them to life, right? As much as the man also plays a role, it's the women who bring them into this world, right? So I wish that they sort of make a film just about the women in Sarpeta and talk about their lives. I wish he gave them more sort of like screen time to sort of talk about these people in more detail, but they should have a movie of their own. Just take it. Women of Sarpet, let's call it.
Okay, thank you. Professor Nadika, possibly, in the redemption of the villain compared to the failure of his father, is it possible? He's asking.
Possibly.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wait for 1 minute if any more questions. Yeah, let's call it a day. Yes. So, thank you, everyone present here for making this meaningful for the wonderful interaction that we had. It was a learning experience indeed. Thank you. All of you, Dr. Achu.
Thank you. These are two wonderful sessions which we had today. I really thank both the speakers, Anquna as well as Rajalekshmi. Really insightful. Love listening to both of you, thanks for the wonderful conversations which we had during today's Causerie. I look forward to more of the same. And thanks, Dr. Nilipati, for taking up the job of moderating this session. I thank you for that. And I also want to extend my thanks to Drishti for helping us with the technical aspects of this meeting regarding the live streaming on YouTube, etc. Thank you all for sparing your time, joining in for today. Love the conversation.